discussion is on occupational hazard and preventive measures. Remember, I told you that we will not be doing this conversation alone. We have a professional. She is Bolanle Edwards. She is a safety advocate. Good morning, Bolanle.
Good morning, Bolade.
Thank you. I like it when people get it right.
My own name is Bolaji too, so because
I'm
doing this.
This is jealousy, but okay.
Really?
Thank you for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I was asking you before we came back on, but I'm going to ask you the question again. As a safety advocate, what does your job entail?
Basically, health and safety generally amongst the cadre, children, adults, women, men. Health and safety generally.
Okay.
So that's what we do.
Do you do what we call rounds, where you go to different companies, you train them, you teach them
Yes.
what and what not to do?
We do that, and because we'd like to get it right, we try to start with the cradle, starting with the schools, making sure that they know all the safety procedures before getting to that stage where it's quite difficult to now instill safety cultures in them. Then, of course, we work with some certain ministry in Lagos State that takes care of such. We collaborate with them. We go and do our checks and balances in some of those offices.
Is it ever difficult to inculcate safety?
It's tough. It's very tough, especially from this part of the world. It's a tough nut to crack because people see safety as a foreign culture. That's what they tell me. I said, this is not our own kind of lifestyle. This is not us. So they don't see it as, and you don't blame them because you can't give what you don't have. These are things that we're not so used to. I mean, you see a driver and you tell him use your seatbelt. Well, you don't need to be told that you need to use a seatbelt as a driver. Not to now talk of the co-pilots there, and of course people sitting behind. If I'm sitting behind, people just tell you, sorry, why would I need to use a seatbelt? I'm safe. But I've seen different cases, stories. A friend who was thrown out from the back of the seat through the windshield on Third Mainland Bridge, and he died. So we get that all the time. So, I mean, do you need some foreigner or somebody to come and tell you that, oh, we produce this, we manufacture this car so that the seatbelt there is not just a decorative
Well,
thing.
in a place like Nigeria where you see people cramp maybe about
Five
four,
people
behind.
at the back.
Someone will lap somebody.
It's totally wrong because the norm has become, the abnormal has become the norm. Because, like we talk about checks, there are no checks to all of those things. And when you do the checks, they look at you like you want to extort money from them. So it's really tough. That's why I say that governments will just continue to advocate or continue to sensitize and train. And of course, the awareness must be back to back.
Yeah.
All right, let's delve into this. What are hazards generally?
Hazards are, potential harm, anything that can potentially harm anybody. Basically, that's what hazard means.
Okay, so are there ways that you can control hazards? Because, I mean, when half of the time when anyone hears the word hazard, the first thing that comes to your head is like
there's this
blazing fire, and then there's confusion everywhere. So is it easy to control?
Absolutely. We have an hierarchy. We have this hierarchy of controls that you can engage. You can start by first eliminating the hazard totally. That means you're separating the person from the hazard. You're taking the hazard away from harming the person. For instance, you could be on there's a construction going on the highway, and you have an impending danger ahead where you have maybe a diversion, like when Third Mainland was under construction. And you should have seen the signage that says that about 100 meters from here, there's a diversion. So it can be removed in case it's going to cause a lot of accidents. That can be done. Then the second one is actually to totally substitute the hazard if it's possible in an organization where you have people who deal with chemical. Chemical can be quite hazardous to the health as well. You can substitute them for better ones. Maybe the one that has lead for the one that doesn't have lead for the one that has lead in it, like paints. You can also do what we call engineering. That's isolating the person from that hazard, taking the person out of where that person can be easily harmed. You could have, for instance, grinding machines that are exposed and you know this is very hazardous to anybody who works in that environment, you can take the person out of there and just make sure that that person is totally out of danger. Where you have so much noise, you can isolate the person from the noise. That we have what we call the administrative one as well, where you have operative systems in office, where proper systems are put in place and procedures are put in place, and you can begin to say, oh, you must follow so and so step. Once you start working in an organization, they reel out the code of conduct, the things that you should do and the things you shouldn't do, where to go, where not to go, where to work, what to work, and how to do the things that you do. I recall when I used to work for an oil and gas company, I mean, it's a must that after sitting for an hour, you must get up and walk around.
Oh, okay.
You must get up from your seat and walk around. Some of us don't get to do that. And their safety officer, yeah, you know what? I suffered a backache for a year after that. That's another type of hazard that people don't see. You sit on those seats, they look so comfortable, you slouch at times, and by the time you get up, you're having back pain. So I didn't have all the pain until after much later after I left the organization, and I was treating the back pain. It was really bad.
Now I have an extra question to what you have asked, what you said, and so if you've developed backache or some sort of pain during that working hours, and you don't know what to do, is your company responsible for taking care of you, or will they just leave you to chance?
Okay, it's a two-faced question.
Yeah.
With a two-faced answer. Like in safety, in health and safety, employers and employees have their own roles to play.
All right.
If your employer has not done what they should have done, then they have every cause to make sure that it's sorted out medically. But if they've done everything and you did not do your own part being that probably you do not sit properly, or you sit for long hours without stretching. And I'll tell you what, during the COVID, since COVID up until now, a lot of people are suffering from backaches because everybody is glued to the screen. People are seated long hours, staring into the screen, having Zoom meetings and all of that. So really, people are developing that health issue. So what do you blame? You have to blame yourself. I mean, once I'm seated and I realize I've seated for like 45 minutes, 50 minutes, I get up and stretch. At times you're so tempted, you're seated and you just want to continue. You're so engrossed in what you're doing. So it's a two-way dimension. The organization must do their part and you must also play your part as well. I didn't play my part when I said that I developed this backache. I mean, the proper, fantastic safety chair was already put in place. But I saw myself sitting down on end, just sitting down and working. Oh, I need to get this done, I need to get that done, and I didn't have that pain until much later, and I paid for it.
And the thing is, I've come to notice a trend that most of the people who are health and safety conscious and compliant, especially with occupational hazards and all of that, more often than not come from the oil and gas sector. I have noticed the trend. I have two people who are friends who have stopped working in oil and gas, and then one of them had to explain to me that it is actually mandatory for you to take HSC courses.
Absolutely.
If you know you're ready to work in oil and gas, if you're not ready, then
they're big on it. They are big because they can be fined. I mean, they can pay heavy fine for not doing that. And I would tell you what, that 80% of what I did today was because of the experience I'd gained while I was working in the oil and gas company. But every organization can, imbibe this culture. It doesn't take much.
Well, how do we get organizations to imbibe in such cultures? Because you've stated this from the onset that it's difficult. It's hard. It's hard to actually get an adult to learn something that they are not very used to, especially in this climate.
Absolutely.
How do you make them see reasons so that they do not spend so much? Because we discovered that it is anyways pound foolish at the end of the day when you get sued or when you get called out.
Look at the second case study we took.
We took this morning, So how do you make them see? Okay. How do you do the awareness thing?
First off, as an organization, as an employer, you must first put in the safety measures in place as an organization. You must make sure that all things are put in proper perspectives before bringing in people into your organization. So if the employer is not doing this, there's no way the employee can imbibe the safety culture. So it starts with the person who is employing you. I employ you today. The first thing you do is, okay, we have this and this and this. You go through the normal training, and health and safety should be top of the top on the list of the training that you're going to go through. It's a must, but we don't get that. People are desperate to work, and you're talking about health and safety. They just want to work and earn a living. So they start working, and the employer doesn't even know what it takes to even have an health and safety practice in place. So it starts with the employer itself. If the employer doesn't have it, and you as an employee do not really take cognizance of it, you're not bothered, then well, whatever happens.
That's interesting.
You know, which is rather sad. It shouldn't be that way. So it's not the big wigs alone that should have health and safety procedures in place. Small companies, SMEs, it starts with all of you. You know, puts little things here and there. Oh, there's a signage that says that slippery floor whilst the cleaner is cleaning the floor. Little things.
I was even going to ask you what requirements are, because when you mention SMEs,
Yes.
all these small businesses,
There are requirements in place.
Yeah, so
there are requirements in place. You know, the Safety Commission has all of those things being put out, but you know, we do things. People just want to just
you seem
start.
flustered.
Honestly, you know, when I started this, people told me, "What in the world are you looking for in safety? What does safety mean to you?" This one, money, is there money in it? You know, and it's an NGO. I mean, we just do it. People don't care. They don't care. That's why you will see somebody cross a 4-lane express. Isn't that suicidal?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. now I understand.
In 2019, I started a series on safety. I called it safety keys, because something had happened that made me feel like people don't pay attention. Somebody had an accident, and nobody knew what first aid to apply, nobody knew what to do. And then out of the blue, I just realized that, including myself, we legit don't know anything to do, especially when there's an emergency. Now, look at the first case that we found out. If that guy had even been found early, I'm very certain that he probably would
die.
They probably wouldn't even know what to do. So now let's come back to requirements. How expensive? Because one of the things Brother and I mentioned before you joined us was, some people will tell you, how much am I making? Where will I find the money? So how expensive is it?
How expensive is life?
Safety procedure?
How expensive is life?
Okay,
What value do you place on life? I think that answers the question. You know, when people begin to talk about, how much, what does it take to have a safety box on the house? If you're to do a roll call now, ask people, do you have a safety box in your house? They will tell you, what is that? Isn't that just put Panadol, put Myodine, put all of that? Those little things can actually save life.
Actually.
Who knows how to perform CPR? The other day, last week Saturday, a guy was jogging. He must have had a cardiac arrest and he died. And you have people who are supposed to be positive responders. They would just rounded him up and they had covered him up on the road.
No.
But if you know what to do, they would have performed the CPR on that guy. He needed to just breathe and give him life. But a lot of people don't know that. In America, the 3, 4, 5-year-olds, they know how to perform CPR. To give life. Just give life. A friend just dramatized in the house the other day in the UK. She said, I just wanted to see if my children can save me. Peradventure, I have this cardiac arrest or something. And she was on the floor. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, they were just wailing, crying. Oh my God, mommy! Oh, mommy is dead! Oh, what's going on? She was just like, oh my goodness, you have not started. Then she got up and said, wow, guys, you couldn't call the emergency number. Then that was how she started out on safety. That was how she started, because even the children, you can't get what you haven't given that, so you can't receive it. You don't expect them to give you what you haven't trained them for.
Wow, in fact, you said so much, and I'm like, my goodness.
There's so much we take for granted.
There is so much we actually take for granted.
I think what contributes to it, because what she said now just took me back to something. I have a friend I told you earlier in safety.
Yes.
And then Mr. Richard.
Okay.
And then he would specifically, in fact, he is specific about kids. He thinks that when you teach kids,
you get it right.
That you get it right. That because
that's my
the
notion
group of
as well.
Adults that we have now, it's quite difficult to get them to.
Tough.
So, knowing well that it is tough to get adults to comply with safety measures, especially in the workplace, what should companies or employers do? What's the role of the employer to ensure compliance? And then what is the role of the employee to ensure compliance?
There's so much. If an employer knows that a staff is going to be endangered, there's going to be absenteeism, there's going to be downtime, production time is going to be slow, loss of money, no income, all of those things. When you begin to look at those things, you won't even think of, I can't compromise. I dare not compromise. Then you as an employee, you started work with a new organization. What are the roles expected of you as an employee? A lot of things should be put in place. Of course, they will tell you these are the things we have in standard operating systems are in place. Follow. When you do not follow suit, there has to be penalty.
Okay.
It's just like you going for meeting late now. Meeting is for 9 a.m. and you're getting there at 11 a.m. What excuse do you have? Oh, there's traffic on the road. But you know Lagos, there's always traffic. So why don't you leave 2 hours earlier? Like I did this morning, because I know I'll be here for this time and I don't want to be tensed and all of that. So you leave, there should be penalty. So when you go for meetings like that, there has to be penalty. Drop 1,000 naira. By the time you do it 3 times, you won't come late again. So there should be penalty. People's jobs should be put on the line.
Okay.
That safety in every organization, safety first. That is what we preach. Safety first. And like you use the children, like I told you, I mean, if you can get it right with the cradle, you can get it right with the toddlers, you can get it right with the youth, you can get it right with the nation itself. The adults they already have their formed, belief systems,
opinions.
That's why I would tell probably a mother and say that, but why are you breastfeeding while driving? And she looks at you. Oh, that happens a lot. Oh, sure. And she tells you, excuse me, it's none of your business. My baby is crying. Oh, sure. You get that all the time. Or you have those children that are poking their heads out of the window, and the person is just driving, the mother is just driving. Or you have a 2-year-old or a 6-month-old baby. They put that. I mean, all the time.
I mean, I do this
all the time.
I told
like, it is real. These are things I've seen. These are people I've dealt with.
How about those that even put, like, you're walking on the road and you are holding a child
on the outer
instead of
in the other
and you are backing the traffic, not facing the traffic. That's another issue again.
Yes, that's another one.
Everybody shouldn't park. I mean, you have no reason to back the traffic because you can be knocked down. You should face the oncoming traffic.
When you're walking at night, you should wear reflective clothing or bright clothing. I mean, these rules are a lot. And
that's so much.
Now I admit that actually it is when you catch them young that they actually
get it right.
All the things I know about road usage, I knew them at age 7.
Yeah.
How did I know it? I was going through my dad's books. He's always prying his books from my hand.
Wow.
And then I saw the FRSC driving instructions. And I sat down and I read everything. And I can never forget what those things are. So I'm actually shocked that a grown woman is breastfeeding while driving.
Yeah.
You know the good thing about attending good schools and also having parents that would pay attention to details is this thing that we've just mentioned.
But a lot of them pay so much school fees that they don't use their brain.
That's why I said pay attention to details. And before we let you go this morning, I'd like you to give an advice to parents. I mean, we've already said it here and there that catching them young is very important. But when the parents doesn't even know, how would they even know that this child is learning what they should learn? How would they don't even turn off their own lights. How would they tell them to turn off the lights? How would they tell them to turn off their devices? How would they, tell them to, how would they teach them, how to use fire extinguishers when they don't even
know how to use them?
How?
You see, I say it all the time that in Nigeria, the only thing we understand is punishments. It's penalty.
Well, this morning there's been so much
punishment. When you punish a Nigerian and you tell a Nigerian that there's a fine to pay, now you see how people are so meticulous when they're like, there's a staff out there who can give you a fine of using the phone whilst driving, There has to be a repercussion for every action taken.
It's sad that we are now at this point.
Honestly, there has to be. So for every Nigerian out there, mother, father, caregiver, parents, school owners, I tell you what, it's the value you place on life. It's going to determine what you get in the end. As simple as that.
Thank you so much for joining us
You're
this
welcome.
morning. You have enlightened us so much. You've opened a portal in my mind that I'm thinking about it.
Thank you so much.
It would be very nice to have you again.
Absolutely.
Let's have these kinds of
We'll be ready to come.
conversations. We just had a conversation with Bolanle Edwards. She is a safety advocate. We've talked about occupational hazards.